If you're looking for a brief overview of what to do and what to expect when buying your first rental property, then you've come to the right video. These are the steps I took to buy a rental a few years ago, and at the end of this video, I'll tell you where you can get an even more in-depth look into the rental buying process. Now, before we get into it, I just want to make clear that real estate laws vary by state, so it's important to understand your local laws. In addition, before making any offers, securing a loan pre-approval is important if you're financing the purchase, as it defines your budget and demonstrates to sellers and agents that you can actually close the deal. Equally important is assembling your real estate team in advance. This can include professionals like a real estate agent, mortgage broker, accountant, financial advisor, property manager, insurance broker, and contractors, so you're fully prepared when the right opportunity comes along. Now, when looking at deals, or as you'll quickly find out, not deals, I generally start by running quick back-of-the-napkin calculations. You can use a spreadsheet for this, so nothing fancy. You'll want to list all revenue sources, including rent and any miscellaneous income like laundry or parking fees. Then you subtract expenses, which range from mortgage payments, property taxes and insurance, to utilities, maintenance reserves, and HOA fees. This will tell you if the property may generate a profit every month, and in addition, you can do a quick cash-on-cash return by dividing the annual profit by your down payment, rehab, and closing costs. If the numbers look solid, then you'll also want to check the zoning to ensure the property is legally configured. This is especially important for properties that are listed as a multifamily, because sometimes additional units are added without permits or without being rezoned, and this can create some big headaches for you if this isn't caught up front. Now, if everything checks out, you'll schedule a walkthrough with your real estate agent and ideally your contractor. In a hot market, you may have to submit offers quickly, even before walking the property, in which case you would submit an offer with many of the contingencies I'll be discussing in a few seconds, and then you would walk the property if your offer gets accepted. During the walkthrough, you'll want to look carefully for any red flags and take notes or photos of anything that looks odd. Now, with the offer, you'll typically want to include contingencies, which are ways that you can back out of the contract should you uncover some issues. The typical contingencies you'll see are the inspection, financing, and appraisal contingencies. The inspection contingency allows you to back out of the deal or renegotiate terms if a professional home inspection uncovers significant issues that weren't disclosed or fully disclosed in the listing. The financing contingency gives you time to secure a mortgage and provides an exit if you're unable to obtain financing. Because even if you're pre-approved for a mortgage, that's generally not a guarantee that you'll be approved. Lastly, the appraisal contingency, which protects you if the property appraises for less than the agreed upon purchase price. If the appraisal comes in low, you can renegotiate the price, make up the difference in cash, or just walk away without losing your earnest money, which is the money you put down to lock the property up and go under contract. You can also add other contingencies, such as the title contingency, which lets you back out if there are title issues you can't resolve. There's also the lease estoppel certificate contingency, which would require the seller to have the tenant sign a certificate stating that there are no current disputes or side agreements to the lease. And lastly, another typical contingency is the environmental assessment contingency. This one can be important in states with a history of industrial use or contamination. Just keep in mind that too many contingencies will weaken your offer. So once that offer is in, now is when you cross your fingers and wait for a response. If the seller accepts your offer, then now is when the real work begins. Depending on the state, you might go under attorney review at this point, which is when an attorney can review, revise, or cancel the contract. Here in Jersey, attorney review typically lasts 3 days for offers submitted through a real estate agent. You'll also need to send your earnest money, usually via wire, cashier's check, or certified check, but be extremely cautious if wiring funds. Just confirm wire instructions directly with your escrow agent to avoid falling victim to scams, which are very common. Your earnest money will be held in escrow, which is a fancy term for an account that you nor the seller have direct control over. This money will either be returned to you if you back out under a valid contingency, forfeited to the seller if you back out for a non-valid reason, or it goes towards your down payment if you close on the property. Now, at this point, if it's been a while since pre-approval, your lender will likely ask for updated financials. So don't make any big purchases or mess with your credit while under contract, or you risk not getting financing. As soon as you go under contract, you'll also want to get the property inspected by a professional inspector ASAP. If the property's vacant, you'll want to ensure the utilities are on as well before you send an inspector over there, since it'll be pretty difficult for the inspector to do their job if they can't test anything. Now, the inspection contingency is usually the first to expire, which is why you want it to be done ASAP. And speaking of contingencies, you'll want to put all contingency expiration dates and the closing date on your calendar calendar so nothing gets missed. And even if your real estate team is reliable, just always follow up and have a backup plan in case someone drops the ball. Because at the end of the day, the responsibility for closing falls on you. Now, as if there wasn't already enough going on, as soon as possible, you'll want to gather all the leases, the rent roll, and proof of security deposits, or confirmation that the property will be delivered vacant. If you're buying a residential property, then chances are the rent roll will only consist of the bank account that the rent is being deposited into and not some formal document. All of this is really just to help verify that the property's income and tenant situation are as the seller represented. Also, in tenant-occupied properties, you'll want to have the seller get estoppel certificates signed by the tenants to confirm lease terms and avoid any undisclosed side agreements. Once the inspection report comes in a few days, you'll want to review it closely and consult your contractor about any needed repairs. If anything not disclosed pops up, then you can negotiate with the seller on who will cover the repair costs. And generally, you'll want to get a credit for the repairs, since if you have the seller take care of the issue, they don't really have any incentive to get the job done right. Now, it's important to get your contractor's input quickly so you can make informed decisions before the inspection contingency expires. In addition, if you're financing the purchase, the appraisal should be ordered quickly, and your lender may coordinate this or require you to use a specific appraiser. The purpose of the appraisal is to confirm the property's value, which is important because if the appraisal comes in low, you would have to make up the difference at closing. Now, as you finalize negotiations and get repair estimates, it's time to rerun the numbers. At this point, you should have all the info needed to confirm that the deal still makes financial sense. Once all your contingencies expire, you're at the point where, barring anything crazy, you'll be purchasing the property. So at this point, you'll want to secure landlord insurance and, if necessary, flood insurance, and submit proof to your lender. You'll also want owner's title insurance, which your lender or title agent can help with. Owner's title insurance is pretty cheap, and you only have to pay for it once. It protects you from title defects such as an unknown owner of the property suddenly appearing. This may sound crazy, but it does happen. Now, on the actual closing day, you'll do a complete final walkthrough of the property to confirm it's in the agreed upon condition before taking ownership. Once you're at closing, you'll need to deliver the down payment and closing funds by following the instructions outlined in the contract, if there are any instructions. And once the funds are in, it's time to sign the mountain of closing documents. For this, you'll want to take your time, ask questions if anything's unclear, and understand exactly what it is you're signing. Now, after the signing is complete, you'll officially own the property. At this point, you'll want to collect and test all the keys and access codes. And if the property is vacant, you'll transfer the utilities into your name so your contractors can get to work, or so you can start showing the units to potential tenants. And that is the rental property buying process in a nutshell. So if you want an even more in-depth look into this process, check out the link in the description to get a detailed step-by-step checklist that walks you through everything you need to close on your first rental sent right to your inbox. This includes almost 30 minutes of video content that goes into the what and how of closing on your first property. All right, thanks for watching, and if you like this content, subscribe for more. I'll see you next time.